Fifes and drums, attention! Fifes and drums, Yankee Doodle, off the roll-off, fifes, up!
Please welcome the Chair of the Scientific Program Committee, Dr. Gabriel Bosslet.
Good morning, and welcome to CHEST 2024. To say that I'm happy to be here would be an understatement. So much planning has gone into us being together today, and it is such a thrill to see us all come together. I'm proud to share with you that this is the largest in-person CHEST annual meeting ever, and has the largest number of in-training attendees, and has the largest number of in-training attendees than ever before. The future of medicine is here, and they're ready to experience all CHEST 2024 has to offer. I'm particularly excited for CHEST to be in Boston for the first time since 1989, and to embrace all of the history here. You see, Boston is home to some of the biggest medical breakthroughs. The first use of anesthesia in 1846, cardiac surgery was pioneered here in 1938, and the first successful organ transplant in 1954, and so much more. Something that I often think about is how medical breakthroughs, or any breakthrough for that matter, don't come without someone pushing boundaries and taking risks. And it's not easy work to make needed change, or to do what others may be afraid to do. I recently wrote a piece that was published in the CHEST Journal about taking anger and making it count. It was an experience about my path into advocacy, and it's part of my life that I hold very close. You see, in December of 2021, I testified before the Indiana State Legislature against a bill that would have made it illegal for hospitals to require vaccinations of their employees. I spoke about the state of the pandemic in Indianapolis, where I practice, and how despite widely available vaccines, unvaccinated people at that time in the ICU were still dying a lot, mostly due to a surge of misinformation and misunderstanding. This experience led to the formation of the Good Trouble Coalition, a nonprofit group that advocates for public health, patient-centered care, and health equity in Indiana. This is work for which I'm very proud. I feel deeply that when you're frustrated about something, especially something that's systemic and feels beyond your control, when you're so frustrated that you reach the point of anger, it's time for action. In my time within the advocacy space, I've heard such inspiring stories of other clinicians, like myself, who took the leap to make a change. I'll use this opportunity to highlight a couple of them, but you should check out the publication Chest Advocates for more examples of Chest member clinician advocacy. Dr. Maxine Dexter was motivated to run for the Oregon State Legislature by her desire to make an impact in the lives of her patients and to make a better future for her children. She served in the Oregon State House from 2020 until this year and is now running for U.S. Congress in Oregon's 3rd Congressional District. When elected, she will make history as the first pulmonary and critical care physician to serve in Congress. Later this morning, Dr. Dexter will join Dr. Marcela Acevedo and I for a session about redefining the physician role in public health advocacy. Another great example of advocacy work is in how Dr. Erica Mosason fights for clean air using her pulmonary experience. She hosts a podcast called Air Health, Our Health, and will be talking about her work in an educational session on Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. This is one of 4 sessions that will be recorded as upcoming episodes of Pulmonary Podcast by Chest members, and I encourage you to check them all out. In addition to Erica's podcast, we're also welcoming Pulm Peeps, The Curious Clinicians, and the ICU Ed and Toddcast. Search podcast in the app to flag them all. Speaking of the app, make sure you have it downloaded because it's the best way to explore everything this meeting has to offer. There is something for every attendee, and each session will be presented from a diverse panel in terms of gender, ethnicity, and clinical background. If you're not sure where to start, we have educational tracks with recommendations for trainees, advanced practice providers, more advanced clinicians, and more. Beyond the exceptional education, this meeting is full of activities to both network and embrace your whole self. In fact, every day at Chest, we will be hosting Friends of Bill W meetings for the first time. For those of you who are unfamiliar, these are Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. As a recovering alcoholic, celebrating 3 years of sobriety on November 1st, I'll be attending all of the... Thank you. I'll be attending all the Friends of Bill W meetings that I can this week. If you're in recovery, or even if you're just curious and you've never been to a meeting, please come and join us. Another example of embracing your whole self is Chest After Hours. On Monday evening, we'll head over to Laugh Boston across the street at the Westin for a storytelling event unlike any other. This year, we're partnering with the Nocturnist podcast, and After Hours will welcome 5 Chest members who will give narrative performances around the theme of revolution. Now, this event requires an RSVP, so if you haven't RSVP'd yet, you should, because I think it will sell out. If you're new to the meeting, make sure to attend the Networks Mixer, the Cultures and Communities Reception, and Chest Challenge. These events are a great way to get involved with the Chest community through networks and interest groups, and they're also just a lot of fun. Lastly, I'll leave you with a plug to join me on Tuesday morning for the Chest 5K Run and Walk, benefiting Chest Philanthropy. While you're here, let us know how everything is going by reaching out on social media, tag @ACCBChest and #Chest2024 to reach us. We have so much planned for you at this meeting, and I am so thrilled to be the one to welcome you to Chest 2024. I hope you have a great time, and welcome to Boston. At this time, please help me welcome Chest President, Dr. Jack Buckley.
Hello, everyone. First, let me reiterate what Dr. Boslett just shared. We have a spectacular event planned, and I'm happy to be one of the people who gets to welcome you to Boston for Chest 2024. While this is a fresh venue for the Chest annual meeting, for me it feels like a bit of a homecoming. My father grew up in Boston, Hyde Park specifically, and the city was a frequent destination during my childhood. I can remember as a kid traveling out to Boston every summer, visiting my aunts and uncles and all my cousins, most of whom are still in the area. While you're here, make sure to explore some of the historic landmarks which can be done easily by walking parts of the Freedom Trail. And my personal recommendation is to save some time to get some fried clams and cornbread at the Union Oyster House. While this meeting kicks off with this opening session, a few of us have already had a few days in town to explore events. And so this past Wednesday, we hosted a grand rounds here, bringing together pulmonary and critical care medicine fellows from the regional Boston fellowship programs. They presented some interesting cases to our visiting chest faculty on a variety of influential topics. And these fellowship programs held events like this pre-pandemic. So I was truly excited we were able to help restart the tradition and give the local fellows an opportunity to interact with each other from both an academic and a social perspective. It was a real treat to get to know some of them and here in the area, and it was both fun and educational. I'm convinced events like this are a great networking opportunity that so many of us value, both early in our careers and later. Just yesterday, a few of our members were able to volunteer for the Boston Healthcare for the Homeless program. This is one of our CHEST community connections, where our volunteers helped provide health education to people without stable housing. It was a great opportunity to give a small bit back to the city we're visiting. And at future meetings, we look forward to growing these volunteer opportunities and hope to open them up to attendee participation to grow our impact. It's wonderful to have everyone together in Boston. I encourage you to make the most of your time here by networking, learning, and having a great time. As president of CHEST, I have the honor of inducting our new fellows of the college. This year, we've had the greatest number of applications and new FCCPs in a very long time, 145 new fellows. Today, we have 100 fellows with us, representing 8 countries and 33 states. Members of the college and distinguished guests, it is my honor to present the 2024 fellows of the American College of Chest Physicians. Congratulations. 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 These fellows have demonstrated their dedication to the field of respiratory and critical care medicine. In our long-standing tradition, I will now administer the new fellow pledge. New fellows, I ask that you please join me in the pledge. In accepting the fellowship of the American College of Chest Physicians, I dedicate myself to the mission and vision of the college. I accept the responsibility to be a lifelong learner in the disciplines related to chest medicine and others, so that I can maintain professional and ethical standards of excellence and provide optimal care for my patients. I will work in harmony with the college as a teacher and advocate, and I will assist and support the college in global efforts to advance patient care, support research, promote diversity to optimize health, and foster health equity. I join my colleagues in the American College of Chest Physicians with pride and enthusiasm. To all the new inductees, on behalf of the college, congratulations. Use this step in your career to become more involved in chest and in the communities where you care for patients. Once again, congratulations to all of the fellows. Please be seated. In rare circumstances, the president, along with the Board of Regents, have the authority to bestow the distinction of honorary fellow of the College of Chest Physicians to an individual or group who has demonstrated exceptional commitment to the chest medicine field. Today, I am humbled to confer the title of Honorary FCCP to a group of individuals who have made a profound impact both within the chest medicine community and in the larger field of public health. The extraordinary nurses who were referred to by their patients as the Black Angels persevered against racial discrimination and other dire conditions to care for highly contagious tuberculosis patients at a time when no one else would. I would like to take a moment to share with you more about the Black Angels.
Well, Seaview was a very special hospital. The patients came from all over to come here for the new treatment. Well, they were very courageous and strong individuals with very high morals. They were dedicated to the work they were doing. They knew it was important. Taking care of the patients when they really needed it, when other people did not want to care for them. Had we not stepped forward, they would not have survived. For the trials, they had to do the dispensing of drugs to the patients. They had to document the patient's condition before, during, and after the medication. So it's important that you document the patient's reactions accurately. I don't think Dr. Robachek or any other doctor could have achieved it without their help. We are in this profession to help others, to be of service, and not to lose sight of that. and to give your best. But I'm glad that the legacy is living on for those over 350 nurses who worked here at CU. You know, the world is all we have, and we have to take care of each other with care and love.
A CHEST Board of Regents member, Dr. Neka Cederstrom, and CHEST leader, Dr. Daniela McCamey, brought the story of the Black Angels to our attention. To accept the honorary FCCP designation on behalf of the Black Angels, please welcome Ms. Virginia Allen. Ms. Allen, by bestowing this honor to the Black Angels, we celebrate not only your individual and collective accomplishments, but also acknowledge the integral role of the care team in fostering a more equitable healthcare system. As honorary FCCPs, the Black Angels join the distinguished group of CHEST members whose contributions have actively advanced the fields of respiratory and critical care medicine. The Board of Regents now authorizes and encourages using honorary FCCP currently and posthumously as a professional distinction. Congratulations to Ms. Allen and all the Black Angels. Thank you.
Good morning. I can't see all of you, but you are beautiful people. Distinguished guests, physicians, I come to you this afternoon with a few words I've prepared. I would like to thank the American Committee who has chosen me for this prestigious award. I will be eternally grateful for this special recognition. Being named part of the legacy of the Academy that represents the most accomplished leaders is very humbling. I would like to also recognize my parents who instilled in me and my siblings the importance, value of education and how it would have an impact in our life's journey. Their mantra was, achieve as much as you can from your studies. While my parents were unable to achieve this goal, they motivated my siblings and myself to excel. I accept this award for all the nurses who served along with me, contributing to the improvement of health care for the communities local and globally. Toni Morrison said, "We never shaped the world. The world actually shapes us." And I thank you for inviting me to be here today. Enjoy your day.
If you want to learn more about the incredible sacrifice and service of the nurses and the path to the cure of tuberculosis, the book Black Angels is available in the lobby. We are also proud to have Dr. Edward Robichek's paper displayed in the Experience Chest area in the exhibit hall starting tomorrow. All right, I will now move on to the awards section of the program. The Alfred Sulfer Award for Editorial Excellence recognizes individuals who have made significant contributions to the Chest Journal and are often world experts in the specific areas of pulmonary and critical care medicine. This year's recipient is Dr. Fabian Maldonado. Dr. Maldonado is a professor of medicine at Vanderbilt University. He is an NIH-funded investigator with an interest in lung cancer biomarkers and minimally invasive diagnostic techniques. Dr. Maldonado serves as an associate editor of the humanities section in the Chest Journal. Congratulations, Dr. Maldonado. Congratulations. Congratulations. The Early Career Clinician Educator Award recognizes the achievements of a clinician educator who has made significant contributions to CHEST, is committed to expanding the field of medical education, has served as a faculty, and has demonstrated a commitment to education outside of CHEST. This year we have 2 recipients. First, Dr. Lauren Tobias has contributed to CHEST by advocating for a broad range of clinically focused topics, including sleep in marginalized and disadvantaged populations. She is the Sleep Medicine Program Director at Yale University. Dr. Tobias serves as the current chair of the Respiratory-Related Sleep Disorders section. She has served as the Sleep Medicine Postgraduate Course Chair and strives to mentor early career faculty and underrepresented groups within her institution. Please join me in congratulating Dr. Lauren Tobias. Dr. Lauren, congratulations very much. Well, our second recipient is Dr. Abdullah Al-Ismail, who is a respiratory therapist and program director of the Bachelor and Master Respiratory Care programs at Loma Linda University. He serves on many CHEST committees, including the Education Committee, the Educator Development Subcommittee, our Asthma and COPD section, and the Respiratory Care Special Interest Group. Dr. Al-Ismail is the first non-physician to receive this award. Congratulations, Dr. Al-Ismail. Love it. Congratulations. Congratulations. The Master Clinician Educator Award recognizes long-term significant contributions to CHEST by serving as a faculty and holding leadership positions within CHEST. Receiving this award signifies dedication to educational outcomes demonstrated through the development and dissemination of educational sessions, activities, publications, and research. This award goes to Dr. Gregory Schmidt. Dr. Schmidt is a professor of internal medicine at the University of Iowa and Associate Chief Medical Officer for Critical Care at the University of Iowa Hospitals and Clinics. He is known for his teaching and clinical interests in critical care ultrasonography and echocardiography. Dr. Schmidt has taught many chest simulation and board review courses, and for the past 20 years, he has served on the Critical Care SEEK editorial board, including serving as editor for multiple years. Congratulations, Dr. Schmidt, on this achievement. Wonderful, congratulations, well deserved, well deserved. The College Medalist Award honors a fellow of the college for their meritorious service in furthering the work in chest medicine. The awardee is usually a clinician, author, teacher, or investigator. This year's award goes to Dr. Raymond Benza. Dr. Benza is the System Director for Pulmonary Vascular Diseases at Mount Sinai and Professor of Medicine at the Icahn School of Medicine. Dr. Benza's focus is in advanced congestive heart failure, cardiac transplantation, and pulmonary arterial hypertension. He has contributed significantly to clinical studies, including the development of the REVEAL Risk Score Calculator. His contributions to the field of cardiopulmonary medicine have shaped both clinical practice and research advancements benefiting patients worldwide. And Dr. Benza has held many administrative and leadership roles, most notably serving on President Obama's Advisory Committee on Organ Transplantation. Congratulations, Dr. Benza. Quite impressive. Congratulations. The Distinguished Service Award is given to a fellow of the college who has made exceptional contributions to CHEST through commitments of time, service, and leadership. It is bestowed to honor an individual who has devoted much of themselves to improve the organization. Dr. Carolyn D'Ambrosio is very deserving of this award. She is a physician at Brigham and Women's Hospital and the current fellowship program director of Pulmonary and Critical Care Medicine at Harvard Medical School. Dr. D'Ambrosio is passionate about preparing the next generation of physicians and believes in the power of mentorship. She has served on the Chest Physician Editorial Board, our Scientific Program Committee. She's chaired the Sleep Network and has chaired the Women in Chest Medicine Interest Group. Currently, she is on the Board of Advisors, serves as Associate Editor for the Pulmonary Open Access Journal, and chairs the Sleep Medicine Board Review. Congratulations, Dr. D'Ambrosio. Congratulations. The Master FCCP designation is the highest honor that the American College of Chest Physicians can bestow upon one of its members. This year, I am pleased to give this award to Dr. Neil McIntyre as he joins the elite group of Master Fellows. Many of you know Dr. McIntyre as a pioneer in the mechanical ventilation space. For over 40 years, mechanical ventilation has been his passion. He was integral in the development of mechanical ventilation simulation programs that are still being taught decades later. The commitment of Dr. McIntyre and the excellent faculty members involved in these courses have helped chest simulation programs into the exceptional slate of educational opportunities offered today. He has served in many leadership positions, including the program committee, our mechanical ventilation domain task force, and our live learning subcommittee. Dr. McIntyre has received 2 honor lectures. He has obtained the Distinguished Chest Educator designation every year since 2018. He was the recipient of the College Medalist Award in 2020 and was honored as the Master Clinician Educator Award recipient in 2022. Congratulations, Dr. McIntyre, on receiving today's and Chest's highest honor. Neil, congratulations. Janet? Once again, please join me in offering congratulations to all of this year's recipients. Now, I would like to take an opportunity to recognize a group of chest educators who have made tremendous contributions over the past year. These individuals have spent countless hours using their collective wisdom and skills in the design and execution of chest programs. For this and so much more, they deserve our sincere appreciation. The 2024 Distinguished Chest Educators recipients represent the top 3% of Chest's international faculty. This year, we recognize 205 individuals, including 49 of whom are receiving the designation for the first time. We are truly grateful for all faculty who advance Chest as an international leader in clinical education, and I encourage you all to visit the award recognition wall on the second floor and congratulate those with the Distinguished Chest Educator ribbon on their name badge during this meeting. Thank you so much. Okay, well, it's such a pleasure to be able to honor all of the award recipients, and it's wonderful to see how many distinguished chest educators we have this year. It really is a testament to the strength of the organization and all of the profession, and to the profession, to have so many dedicated clinicians with a deep commitment to not only practicing respiratory and critical care medicine, but also teaching it. Every recipient embodies what CHEST stands for, and it was my honor to have served at the helm of such a flourishing organization for the past year. While my term goes to the end of the year, there is a lot that's already been accomplished in these 9, almost 10 months. This year, we had a 62% increase in our travel grants applications compared to last year. These grants, given to 50 individuals, represent our inclusive and equitable community by supporting early career members from historically excluded backgrounds to come to this year's meeting to engage and grow professionally. We recently named the next mentors for the Medical Education Diversity Scholar Award in partnership with the Association of Pulmonary and Critical Care Program Directors. Dr. Tristan Huey and Anna Neumeier applied as co-mentors because of their success they've had at the University of Colorado in implementing a strategic approach with both a senior and a junior mentor. As someone who's had a lot of experience as a program director, I think this approach sounds like the best of both worlds for an aspiring pulmonary critical care physician. The award will support protected time for the mentors and will also fund the one-year research project of a mentee. The intent is supporting a fellow who would like to pursue a career in medical education and significantly contribute to the diversity of the medical education community. Here's the really fun part. Mentee applications are now open, and they will stay open through November 1st. And I encourage all of you to help spread the word to those who are in their first or second years of fellowship. There's another upcoming opportunity for those looking to improve pulmonary medicine. CHEST is proud to announce a new grant with the American Lung Association for next year. In celebration of their 120th anniversary, CHEST and ALA will offer a $120,000 award for a guideline implementation project that aims to improve health equity. We're really looking forward to helping ALA commemorate their 120 years of impact by further contributing to advancing health care for all. Also working toward improved health equity this year, CHEST expanded its advocacy with an effort to better regulate tobacco products, and we have been a key player in introducing a new bill to Congress that would improve access to supplemental oxygen for our patients. Supported by a number of U.S. senators, the Supplemental Oxygen Access Reform, or SOAR Act of 2024, would establish a new payment methodology for non-liquid oxygen, allowing for most Medicare beneficiaries to be covered under the base payment levels. Visit the CHEST Advocacy webpage to learn more about how to support this and our other advocacy initiatives. We recently expanded CHEST initiatives that focused on improved patient care and communication. Bridging Specialties was originally launched to bring together pulmonary and primary care specialties to shorten the time to diagnosis of interstitial lung diseases. This program will now expand into the timely diagnosis of COPD and NTM bronchiectasis. With the intent to strengthen the clinician-patient relationship, the First 5 Minutes program is an e-learning training module that started with strategies for building patient trust. We now have a new module on cultural humility. I had the opportunity to participate in an in-person First 5 Minutes training, and I can tell you from firsthand experience that anyone working with patients can benefit from the tools provided in this course. Each of these accomplishments of the past year is a reflection of the direction we are headed as an organization. At last year's meeting, past President Dr. Doreen Adrizzo-Harris introduced the CHEST organizational values. And today, I get to share with you some examples of how CHEST is living our values by spotlighting the achievements of some of the extraordinary members and the impact of your CHEST philanthropic gifts. First, I'd like to spotlight a 2019 grant for a pediatric asthma van that has been able to reduce emergency room visits among Chicago youth. A great example of community impact, Dr. Philip Sheridan was also awarded the 2024 Community Impact Grant to expand the program from pediatric patients into adulthood. This year, we also provided grants for asthma education, efforts to reduce carbon dioxide, community respiratory infection screening for kids, and TB patient monitoring. For our value of inclusivity, CHEST launched interest groups that include the LGBTQ+ interest group that celebrates every member for exactly who they are. To learn more about the CHEST interest groups, I encourage you to attend the Cultures and Communities reception on Tuesday, just before CHEST Challenge, and come ready to mingle. Always supporting the future of medicine, CHEST promotes innovation in a variety of ways, one of which being the latest grant for biomarker testing in non-small cell lung cancer, which is awarded to Drs. Tamer Saeed Ahmed and Adam Fox. Biomarker testing really is the future of diagnostics and has the potential to drastically improve the survival of lung cancer. And I look forward to seeing what these physicians are able to accomplish with this financial support. I mentioned a bit ago how CHEST supports advocacy. And a great example of this is in Dr. Stephanie Maximus, who is joining the Medical Consortium for Climate Health as the CHEST representative. The consortium steadfastly believes that climate change is one of our most important issues of our time and has major health and healthcare implications. And it brings together like-minded clinicians to advocate for climate health support. We are proud to have her representing this organization and anticipate all of the positive impact she will have. Recently, efforts to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, in the medical education space was threatened when a U.S. congressman introduced the EDUCATE Act, which would eliminate federal funding for medical schools and accrediting institutions that embrace DEI initiatives. CHEST responded swiftly and resolutely that in accordance with our mission to champion the prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of chest diseases and advance the best patient outcomes, we are firmly committed to the health equity and the necessity of DEI efforts in healthcare, research, education, and delivery. While this was an initial statement, CHEST will continue to fight for the principles on which we stand. And it gives me great pride to be able to share with all of you these activities, and I'm eager to see what the future holds as we work together for the greater good. I am truly honored to be part of an organization that recognizes the contributions of so many different clinicians that all work toward improved patient care, whether it's celebrating the contributions of the Black Angels or creating resources to support our advanced practice providers. This organization is wholly focused on bringing everyone together, and I look forward to what is to come. Speaking of what is to come, I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize my successor, Dr. John Howington, who will take over as president of CHEST in 2025. I've known John for several years, and I'm excited to see him in this role. The organization is in great hands with John, and I have no doubts he will take the reins with confidence and keep us moving forward. Shortly, I will welcome to the stage our anticipated keynote speaker, Dr. Vanessa Carey, who will address something else that's been at the forefront when we think about our future, and that's the health of our climate. It's important that we all understand our role in being part of the solution. I'm proud to share that CHEST 2024 was planned to be environmentally friendly. We are encouraging refillable water bottles over single-use plastics and opting for ride-sharing solutions over idling shuttle buses. Later this year, we'll be kicking off our solar project at CHEST headquarters, which includes the installation of solar panels and dual-port EV charging stations in the parking lot. If each of us makes personal changes and contributes to larger organizational changes, we will begin to see a tangible shift. Recently, the journal CHEST published an article called climate change for the pulmonologist. And the takeaway for me was that the climate change impacts our patients in so many more ways than we realize. From rising temperatures to extreme weather events to air pollution, we are already seeing the real impact at the bedside. I'm looking forward to hearing from our keynote, Dr. Vanessa Carey, who has such depth of knowledge and experience in this area. We asked her to share some of that knowledge to help us all better understand the challenges we face and better prepare us for what we can do to minimize the impact of our changing planet. Dr. Carey is a critical care physician and the director of the program in global public policy at the Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School. She is the co-founder and CEO of Seed Global Health, a nonprofit organization focused on health systems strengthening and transformation through long-term investments and training the global health workforce. Last year, she was appointed to the World Health Organization Special Envoy for Climate Change and Health to advocate for investments to address the growing effects of climate change on the world's health, to meet the growing burdens of disease from climate change. Please welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Vanessa Carey.
Thanks. Good morning. It's very early on a Sunday, so I'm incredibly honored that you guys are all awake and joining. Congratulations to all of you for your inducting into the College of Fellows. My hope today is to wake us up and take us through a brief overview of how climate change is impacting the health and well-being of our world, our patients, and our practice. A few quick disclosures. This is all funding that goes directly to Seed Global Health to support our work in sub-Saharan Africa. As all of you are aware, we are facing the profound changes from our climate today. And I want to give a little bit of background about the state of the world right now and where we are today. So according to the most recent report of the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, human emissions of greenhouse gases have led to, on average, of an increase of about 1.1 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Temperatures, though, are on track to reach about 2.8 degrees Celsius by the end of the 21st century. The problem with all of this is that the environmental and human impacts of climate change will become more severe with every bit of global warming that goes up even further. And it's going to lead to increased frequency of extreme weather events, be it flooding, extreme heat, hurricanes. The overall summary is that we are off track. And in 2015, nearly every country in the world signed on to what you all know as the Paris Agreement. It was a landmark international treaty in which 195 countries signed on, pledging to keep the Earth's temperature to basically, quote, well below 2 degrees Celsius from pre-industrial levels. And the agreement was really to do it to about 1.5 because it was felt from a fact-finding report that if we could stay at 1.5, it would mitigate the most amount of damage that we would see from if this was sustained over a decades-long period, it would mitigate the most amount of damage that we would have, and that we could protect regions and vulnerable ecosystems, again putting that in quotes, from the most sort of impacts that could happen. But I think we're already there. Because the recommendation was to set it to 1.5. The 1.5 was really just like a defense limit, if you will. And it was a target by which we thought that we could actually sort of survive, if you will. But the problem is there's nothing magical about 1.5. 1.5 or 1.4 is better than 1.5, 1.3 is better than 1.4, and so on. So today, we're already seeing more days above average at 1.5 than not. And we're already seeing catastrophic effects with the increased amounts of events that we're seeing. So we're not at 1.5. We're actually on track to overshoot it. And our pledges and our targets are not at all yet where they need to be. So what this means is that we're falling behind. And we're seeing an acceleration of the impacts of climate change on our health. Health is the lived experience of climate change. And we're only really just beginning to understand exactly how that's impacting us. To give you a sense of our trajectory, what we're facing is actually prophetic, and it also means we have to accelerate our response to how we're managing this. Air pollution causes more deaths a year than we saw in the entire duration of the COVID pandemic. Malaria cases are skyrocketing today, both in geography and in numbers, and in places we've never seen malaria because of what's happening. That's just to name a few of what we're seeing with climate change. As this graphic from the WHO shows, the impact of climate change on our health is actually very broad. It exploits those factors that make us vulnerable to poor health in the first place, are worsening those parameters. It impacts the burdens of disease that we see directly, accelerating all disease burdens, and it weakens our ability to deliver services to respond. To speak specifically to the direct impacts, climate change is worsening all disease burdens. You can see its impact on respiratory and pulmonary health, as you all know really well, cardiovascular disease, maternal and child health, mental health, trauma, kidney disease. Pretty much everything you can imagine is being impacted by climate change. And the problem is, though, that each event from climate change, each sequela that we see of climate change is actually helping to drive these diseases even further. But for all of us here, pulmonary and critical care is at the epicenter. So I'd like to focus on the three primary drivers for a moment of lung health, which are worsening with climate change. Air pollution is the largest modifiable risk to public health globally. The significant mortality burden is related actually to cardiovascular disease, which is about 30% of the deaths that we see. And then stroke and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease are responsible for about 16% of those deaths each. But what's happening is that the chemical species that lead to the degradation in air quality are frequently being co-emitted with greenhouse gases. So as we're driving up temperatures from greenhouse gases, we're also emitting the factors that directly damage our lung health, be it nitric oxides, ozone, or particulate matter. And further, wildfires, droughts, and the higher temperatures we're seeing that are stemming from climate change actually contribute to a vicious cycle because they're increasing that particulate matter and ozone and then also contributing to the additional health effects that we're seeing beyond those that we're directly seeing from the fossil fuels. To give a sense of the scale of this issue, you're looking at a map of all-cause mortality from particulate matter 2.5 and ozone around the world. Low and middle-income countries take the full brunt of this, and they're of the disease and premature death that we're seeing. And actually, about 92% of all pollution-related deaths are being seen in those countries. But as you can see, nowhere in the world is necessarily immune. And to give a sense of exactly how damaging fossil fuels are to our survival, this is a map of all-cause mortality per 100,000 people per year, higher deaths being in darker orange. So if you remove all fossil fuels, you can reduce the attributable deaths from fossil fuels by 25% in sub-Saharan Africa, 30% in the Middle East, but the largest mortality reduction would be seen in high-income countries with an 85% reduction in attributable deaths if you remove fossil fuels. If you remove all anthropogenic emissions and air pollution, it would reduce attributable deaths in high-income countries by 94%. Particulate matter, which you're all very familiar with, is one of the core components of air pollution. And as you all know, it can be variable in size. And while all particulate matter of any size is a concern, the small diameter is particularly worrisome because it can penetrate deeply. Particulate matter 2.5 has a large surface area too, relative to its size, so it actually can absorb a lot of variety of toxic and harmful substances. So because of its small particle sizes, it can penetrate deeply into the terminal bronchioles and alveoli. It actually can cross the blood-gas barrier and enter our circulatory system, creating that toxicity around the body. Studies show there's a significant lung association between particulate matter exposure and reduced lung function. For example, a 2019 study looked at over 300,000 individuals at the UK Biobank ages 40 to 49 with complete covariate data and valid lung function measures. And examining the associations between regression-based estimates of particulate matter concentrations of PM2.5, PM10, with FEV1, FVC, their ratio, and its COPD, the study found that higher exposures to each pollutant were significantly associated with lower lung function and COPD, And there were robust associations with reduced lung function for males, individuals in low income, and, quote, at-risk occupations, which you can imagine are those where you're exposed to particulate matter, air, outside work. And increased COPD associations were observed for obese, low income, and non-asthmatic participants. So ambient air pollution is very much associated with our lung function and increased COPD, and there's no safe threshold level in any of this. The problem is that our particulate matter exposure is variable and not always in our control. Wildfires are a great example, as you can see. This is a map of the wildfires that came from Canada in 2023. And so climate change is increasing heat and drought, leading to the increased risk of wildfires, and smoke from wildfires create particulate matter, ozone, and toxic gases and chemicals, which are all linked to shortness of breath, asthma, COPD, have been associated with premature death in infants and low birth weight. And smoke can travel hundreds of miles. Drought makes it worse because they create conditions that are favorable for dust storms, again, kicking up all this mess. But also, it turns out when you have less humidity in the air and less rainfall, that particulate matter hangs around longer. So the whole thing is a vicious cycle of air pollution and poor health. As we started to understand this intimate relationship between air pollution and our lung health, the data is finally producing policy changes in Washington and elsewhere. So outside of this room, you all might know this, but a lot of people don't understand this connection. And so in February of this year, it took this long for the EPA to actually reduce their standard now, so that for the annual PM 2.5 standards, which went from 12 micrograms per cubic meter down to 9. And the result is going to be significant public health benefits. The revised standard will avoid premature deaths. It will avoid lost work days and save productivity and an economic bottom line. And the savings, actually, that would be accrued over time will far outweigh the costs of implementing any of these changes. We're also seeing increases in ozone from climate change. Ozone, when high up in the earth, is actually a protective layer. It shields us from the sun and can be healthier. Dermatologists actually love it. But climate change is creating conditions which is increasing the amount of ozone through heat and stagnant air that is increasing unhelpful levels at ground level. And when it forms near the Earth's surface from any sources, including gases emitted from smokestacks, tailpipes, or reactions between increasing levels of nitric oxides and volatile organic chemicals, it creates what we call smog. And ozone, as you well know, creates bronchial inflammation, airway hyperresponsiveness via oxidative injury and inflammation. The health impacts of ozone are significant, and spikes in ground level ozone are linked with increased hospitalizations for COPD, as we noted, pneumonia, asthma, allergies, and other lung problems, premature death. But ozone is also responsible for 1 out of every 9 deaths from COPD globally. 70% of those deaths are in India and China, so maybe not the United States, but because of dense urban populations, large populations, and terrible air quality. But don't kid yourself, those exist in our communities here, maybe not at countrywide scale, but certainly at a community level and a neighborhood scale, and probably is affecting your patients. But it turns out that the impact of ozone, as I mentioned, is responsible. So to give you an example of this, an ecological and illustrative study was done, it's a long time ago, in 2001, but it tells a really important story. It looked at the 17 days of the Atlanta Olympics in 1996. And it compared it to a baseline 4 weeks before and 4 weeks after the Olympic Games. And what the study found was that the peak daily ozone concentrations decreased by 27.9%, which was a larger drop than any other emitted gases during that time. And acute asthma care events decreased by 41.6%, demonstrating the daily impact you can imagine that many of our patients have in the community from traffic or other gas emissions, and the potential for us to reduce harm through strategic interventions. Allergens and asthma are on the rise. So climate change is contributing to the potency of allergens with more carbon dioxide in the air, warmer temperatures, plants are producing more pollen. We're seeing them grow in more locations, flower over longer periods. So we're having earlier and longer pollen seasons, higher pollen potency. And then the increased storms, precipitation, and changes in humidity we're seeing are actually leading to increased mold growth, which is all perpetuating the hypersensitivity and the other reactions that we're seeing. I wish I could say that the impacts of climate change on our health would stop at what I've just described, but there are a number of other challenges that we increasingly face. Heat stress is the leading cause of weather-related deaths, and it can exacerbate underlying illnesses, including cardiovascular disease, diabetes, mental health, obviously asthma, and increase the risk of accidents and transmission of infectious diseases. Heat stroke is a medical emergency with a high case fatality rate, and the number of people exposed to extreme heat is growing due to climate change in all world regions. Heat-related mortality for people over 65 years increased 85% in a couple documented periods, 2000 to 2004 and 2017 to 2021. The vulnerability to heat, though, is shaped both by physiological factors and exposure factors such as occupation and socioeconomic conditions. If treatment is prompt, symptoms tend to be mild, patients recover really quickly. But I think, as you all know, the complications can be really severe. It can lead to DIC, ARDS, multisystem organ failure, and death. Extreme weather is not something we may think of as affecting our health, but it's actually a danger, and we think of it as a danger to our house and homes, but the reality is that it is a direct threat to our health. Beyond extreme heat and wildfires, extreme weather can be very, very damaging. Hurricanes and coastal storms can cause direct injury during the event. We know how many just died in Hurricane Helene. They also can increase the potential, though, for hazardous chemicals and waterborne and vector-borne pathogens that spread through communities and environment due to facility damage, storm surge, and flooding. Sea level rise. It's exacerbating the effects of coastal flooding from storm surge that you might see in an acute event, and it's actually increasing the potential for deaths due to drowning, changing sort of current patterns, and this was obviously the big concern with Hurricane Helene. But sea level rise can also contaminate water and land from untreated wastewater and legacy toxins. As the seawaters are rising, they're leaching this out of the environment. And what that does is it actually contaminates our groundwater so that you can see reduced water quality, water security, and increasing salinization of drinking water sources. The problem with that actually is that the salinization of our drinking water has very real and extensive health impacts that affect our health. And we're seeing this globally and in the United States. Mental health. We barely talk about mental health anyway at Baseline, but in the context of climate change, it is absolutely being impacted. Eco-anxiety, which is the anxiety caused by the fear of environmental doom, very real. My 8-year-old couldn't sleep last year because of it. Had to write down all of her fears before she could sleep, and it was death was a word that she put on this piece of paper. PTSD, increased social and economic stressors, all of which are increasing and declining our mental well-being. But hospitalizations for psychiatric disorders are also on the rise with heat waves. A 2021 study in Bern, Switzerland showed a linear increase in hospitalizations for 4% for every 10 degrees Celsius increase in daily temperature. The rates of suicides have been shown to also be higher. And what we've seen is in the 2018 study in Nature Climate Change showed that suicide rates in the United States increased by 0.7%, and in Mexican municipalities by 2.1% for every 1 degree increase Celsius in monthly temperatures. The study actually looked at additional signs of depressive symptoms as indicated by people's social media communications, and over 600 million social media updates actually had depressive language in them in this setting. But through the work that I do with Seed Global Health, the nonprofit that I founded and run, we've experienced many of these direct impacts of climate change. We partner with governments, as you heard, in sub-Saharan Africa to support the training of health workers to meet the growing challenges that they're seeing. And they are all seeing the impacts of climate change. I spend a good deal of my career now working outside the direct clinical setting. And herein lies the considerable concern for how climate change is undermining the health and well-being of our patients. Climate change is profoundly altering various determinants of our health. These effects are far-reaching, they're insidious, and they are difficult to treat. And these additional impacts are going to underlie the reason why many of your patients present to you clinically. Climate change costs us money, whether it's from extreme weather, air pollution, or heat. We see this data in the United States now, where the costs of climate change are undermining our economy in terms of productivity and direct costs. And economics are being impacted at a macro level, where it turns out the healthier you are, the better your GDP, but on a microeconomic level too, as households who have someone sick are losing their purchasing power with loss of livelihoods from poor health. Climate change is worsening the divide of access to resources and driving a cycle of poverty, instability, and poor health, with those already vulnerable feeling the most impacts with the least resources with which to respond. In many cases, climate change is actually reversing our progress for poverty, development, and the Sustainable Development Goals. Today, those that are emitting the most greenhouse gases are actually the countries that are least vulnerable. So this is from the Notre Dame GAIN project, and it was a graph that was put together by earth.org. And what they're showing you is on the x-axis is the absolute greenhouse gas emissions being done on an annual basis. The y-axis is your vulnerability to climate change. The size of the circle is your GDP per country. And the color is how committed you are to that Paris Agreement. Not surprisingly, China and the United States are the leaders. So China is the farthest on the right, and the United States is the largest bubble closer. And what you find is that the top emitters of greenhouse gases are China, the United States, and India. And these three countries are responsible for 42.6% of all the greenhouse gases annually, currently. While the bottom 100 emitting countries are responsible for less than 3% of all greenhouse gases. And at the heart of the growing inequalities from climate change is what we call a deprivation gradient. The deprivation gradient in morbidity and mortality exacerbates the effects of other risk factors of social determinants of health. This was described by Lancet Planetary Health last year. This means that poor communities are being made poorer by climate change. And around the globe, people experiencing socioeconomic disadvantages are more likely to live near risk factors for climate-induced health impacts with less access to green and blue spaces, more exposure to urban heat islands, air pollution, chemicals, toxins, or they can't afford the measures they need to respond. This is the same phenomenon we witnessed in COVID, where they are less well off, lived in multifamily settings, were required to go to work, were in service industries, or lacked the resources to protect themselves in the right way. Climate change divides us by economic lines. Studies have actually mapped heat patterns over several urban areas have found that lower income communities are as much as 10 degrees hotter than wealthier communities. This is from NPR. It's just a beautiful visual of the relationship between extreme heat and income. Well, here you see extreme heat being represented in darker red, and you see income, wealthier being darker green, and poorer being white. And as you can see, there's an absolute inverse relationship between wealth and heat. But this relationship, as shown here in Los Angeles and Oakland, is the same whether you're in Anchorage or Minneapolis or Toledo or Portland or Lexington, Kentucky. It's true everywhere that we are seeing this in this country. Painfully, these trends of health inequalities and inequities, though, in the United States are consistently worse when you look at the health outcomes among minorities. Communities of color often face disproportionate health risks linked to cumulative exposures to environmental hazards and may be more vulnerable to the health effects that are associated with climate. And this is due to what we call racialized health and socioeconomic disparities, which are unrelated to climate, such as systemic lack of investment in access to quality housing, education, and food. The data on Black individuals in America and asthma tell the story alone. Black individuals are more likely to face complications or death from asthma, period. Further, Black communities tend to have fewer trees, more heat-trapping pavement areas, and the rate of heat-related deaths among Blacks in America is 150 to 200% greater than for non-Hispanic whites. And it's also higher for Indigenous Americans. Indigenous people in rural communities inhabit more than 50% of the world's land, spanning all continents except Antarctica. Their vulnerability is compounded by reliance on traditional practices and their often marginalized status, and they face poverty rates 2 to 3 times higher than the global average. The painful truth is that Indigenous people have lived in close relationship with the land, always. They've been critical stewards of its preservation and sustainable practices, and their ability to adapt is being swallowed by the rapid changes and the boundaryless impacts of greenhouse gases. Very salient to recent events is the relationship between climate and pandemics. Experts predict that there's more than a 50% chance of another COVID-like pandemic in the next 20 to 25 years, and this risk is being exacerbated by climate change. At its nexus, there are 4 primary concerns. The first is that the root causes of climate change impact the risk of pandemics from the most basic scientific and translational levels to the larger biological and environmental levels, including things like deforestation causing the large loss of habitat. Second, the impacts of climate change on our communities, patterns of living and socioeconomics and livelihoods, including on migration, make us more vulnerable to and even fuel the risk of outbreaks. Third, we remain ill-prepared to detect, contain, and respond to emerging outbreaks and pandemics in the way our health systems are currently structured, both here in the United States and globally. And finally, we are not mobilizing the financing, financial structures, or frameworks that are required to change our capabilities. There's a confluence, though, of these pieces. As air pollution is killing millions, it's also actually setting us up for catastrophe and pandemics. Worsening air quality increases the risks for infectious illnesses. For example, a 2015 study suggested that avian flu was able to spread through particulate matter of varying sizes, with higher concentrations leading to increased transmission. Data from the COVID pandemic illustrated similar concerns. In a 2021 study, researchers noted that there were significant positive associations with new daily confirmed cases of COVID-19, with even short-term exposure to air pollutants and particulate matter. Mortality also increased. In a 2020 study on COVID mortality in the United States, researchers showed that higher historical exposure to particulate matter 2.5 was positively associated with higher county-level COVID-19 mortality rates after accounting for co-founders, including population size and density, age, time elapsed from the beginning of the pandemic, stay-at-home mask orders, number of individual tested, and a series of other parameters. And these data actually have been replicated in other countries and communities. So the question becomes, how do we respond to this crisis? Reducing the damage from climate change is a moral, professional, and public health imperative for clinicians. We have a commitment to our patients and a responsibility and a power to leverage our position as one of the most respected still professions to influence patient care, policy, and advocacy. There's a tripartite response required: mitigation, the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. This is the crux of any response. As long as we are putting greenhouse gases into our atmosphere, we are making our health worse. But we also have to adapt and build resilience, because at the core, it's to mitigate the harm that's already happening to us. And we are already experiencing these drastic impacts, which are accelerating. The health sector is actually responsible for about 5% of net global emissions. In the US, it contributes to 10% of the US's contribution to greenhouse gases. And if the US health sector were a country, it would be the 13th highest emitting country in the world to greenhouse gases. To put this into context, the airline industry, which we always think of as being the big greenhouse gas offender, is actually responsible for only 3.5% of all greenhouse gases in the world. There are 3 mechanisms where the health sector is contributing: supply chain and production, especially raw material extraction, processing, and transport, is responsible for anywhere from 50 to even as high as 80% in some literature for the amount of the health sector's contribution. Patient care pathways, which is the facilities delivering care, our attempts to prevent disease or treat disease, is then therefore 45% if you keep the 50% for the first number. And research and development is responsible for about 5% of our greenhouse gases. Within the health sector, though, we do have to focus on adaptation and resilience, responding to be able to minimize the impacts of climate change, reduce the adverse effects on health, and ultimately to focus on disease prevention and awareness, strengthening our health system's capabilities, assessing our vulnerabilities, and using data to guide our responses, to be strategic on how we can take the best care of our patients, but also reduce the contributions. As a sector, we have an opportunity to acknowledge that climate change is not creating new phenomenon. This is not new. but what it is doing is exploiting and exacerbating existing cracks in our system. And the opportunity for us, is therefore to address fundamentals to improve care. Because our health system is vulnerable in multiple ways. I would argue that at the heart of any response is all of us. The institutional knowledge of health professionals is indispensable in modifying health systems to become both resilient to climate threats and environmentally sustainable. We're the front line. Just look at COVID. And that means, though, that around the globe, we are also the most vulnerable. We experience the physical and mental health risks of climate change more acutely than the general population. Because climate change is not only disrupting our lives, but it's making our jobs more challenging, raising the risk of burnout and worse outcomes for our patients. At SEED, we have focused on healthcare workers, and this is how we've come to understand, actually, the impact of climate change. SEED works in 4 countries, and we've trained over 42,000 doctors, nurses, and midwives over the last decade, and they're in service to over 76 million people. And they're all being hammered by climate change. Zambia, a country where we work, for example, is facing a dual crisis. They have a drought that is leading to food insecurity, affecting their agriculture, which is one of their primary sources of GDP. But it's also facing flooding and extreme weather and storms and excess water that is ruining water security, creating flooding, and has created a massive cholera outbreak that has shut down businesses, shut down schools, as well as increased the rates of malaria. And the whole system is getting disrupted. But despite these challenges that we have faced, both in infrastructure and rising disease burden, SEED is consistently focused on healthcare workers because people are the leading levers of change in a healthcare system. So as we face these increased risks from climate change, pandemics, rising burdens of disease, and other emergencies, it just doubles down for us, and I hope for all of you, that the world needs healthcare workers, capable, protected, armed, and in-charge healthcare workers and clinicians like all of you who can advocate and be on the front lines of the change that we need for this moment. And the lessons we've learned have carried to all settings. And whether in my role as CEO of SEED Global Health or as the WHO Special Envoy for Climate Change and Health, I'm consistently asked, what can we all do? And my response will remain the same. It starts with all of us. Because we have to learn to recognize the challenges from climate threats and what it means to the risks to our patients, our workplaces, and everywhere that we are. So what can we do? We can recognize climate threats and the risks to our workplace. We can develop programs and practice which are to better respond, build the resilience of our settings. We can integrate climate and health education into our patients' communications and into the community. Understand prevention, diagnosis, and management of climate-accelerated diseases. Scale research at the nexus of climate change and health so that we can really understand what is needed to build the evidence base and understand the interactions that are happening between climate, our patient populations, and our health systems. And finally, advocacy is essential. We're so used to being able to communicate to our patients one-on-one, but we have to figure out as a group, and it was really wonderful to hear some of the advocacy work that's already happening, because we can be powerful change agents when we build a collaborative voice and learn to link the data of our patients' experience as constituents and bring that to policy leaders so that policy leaders hear things in the terms and the language that they care about. And there are a number of resources out there that we can use to help support us to do this. But it starts with educating our patients. Help them understand their personal risks to the changing climate. Help them build emergency response plans for their irritants, triggers, so that they know what to do, where to seek help, how to manage. I know many of us are doing these things already, but we have to think beyond sometimes just the lungs and think about the whole picture of their community and the way their health is being impacted. We have to reinforce the importance of prevention and support our patients to assess their work environment, including, especially with the rise of heat that we're seeing, and to access the resources to address vulnerabilities. There are a number of resources and tools out there that can be used for you as clinicians to give to your patients to be able to assess and actually do a really methodological checklist of the ways that they're at risk. We have to optimize care pathways to reduce resource consumption and emissions. We have to take this on, especially when we look at the United States contribution to greenhouse gases, and there are feasible targets. So video medicine can be appropriate. It's not always appropriate, but where it is appropriate, we should think about how to bring it in and bring in telemedicine and ensure that there is a reimbursement structure to that time and that effort. Because research post-COVID has actually shown that telemedicine is associated with substantial cost reductions and improved access to care, but it offsets carbon emissions. A 2021 study in the Future of Healthcare journal noted an average carbon savings ranging from 0.7 to 372 kilograms of carbon dioxide per telemedicine consultation. And particular to our profession is metered dose inhalers. So metered dose inhalers actually release hydrofluorocarbon gas that is 1,400 to 3,000 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And actually, metered dose inhalers make up 75% of our prescriptions in the US. That's the equivalent emissions, according to the Commonwealth Fund, of driving 500,000 cars for a year. A study in JAMA, published in August of this year, looked at the environmental impact of inhalers in the US, and the study used safety data of the 37 major inhalers that we use, calculated the gases contained in each inhaler, and then reviewed 70 million CMS inhaler claims in 2022. Metered dose inhalers account for 98% of the total emissions of inhalers in the United States, and an estimated 1.15 million metric tons of annual carbon dioxide equivalents, which is the same as about 220,000 homes running their electricity for a year. Inhalers globally account for 0.04% of all greenhouse gas emissions. When you think about airlines, cars, trucks, smog, factories, inhalers are responsible for a very significant amount. And it turns out also that dry powder inhalers have substantially lower emissions, but they account for a disproportionate amount of spending because they're either under patent or they're not actually even available in this country in many cases. But when this particular study, dry powder inhalers, while they represented 2/3 of inhaler costs, some costs exceeding over $1,000, they were only about 1/3 of the claims that were made. Prevention is going to be important. We have to recognize the most effective way for us to reduce emissions is to reduce the demand for healthcare. And finally, we can ensuring better outcomes is critically important. A 2021 study in European Respiratory Journal noted that patients with poorly controlled asthma in Britain have asthma care-related carbon footprint 3 times that of those who have well-controlled asthma. And this is likely due to the overuse of inhalers as well as seeking care. We can streamline and optimize testing. So there's ways that we can offer data to guide our decision-making. And for example, the Choose Wisely campaign it's anchored in evidence-based lists of recommendations developed by national clinician societies that basically notes the frequently overused tests that are not supported by scientific data and which can actually cause harm to patients. And these can be leveraged by all of you as individual clinicians to help find a feasible way to both care for your patients better, but to reduce our carbon footprint. But the work begins at home, and we as clinicians have to help guide our institutional leadership to green the clinical facility and infrastructure that we work in. It will require dedicated teams and metrics, but we can do that. And there are opportunities to ensure that our leadership are reviewing points of intervention, including across the operation of healthcare facilities, including, for example, inhaled anesthetics are terrible for our environment. And then we can educate using our authoritative and trusted voices. We have an opportunity to help promote better outcomes, better investments, and advocate for the critical co-benefits in our communities. Greening and strengthening our infrastructure, advocate for various regulations, clean energy, air monitoring, vulnerability assessments, highlighting the at-risk communities that we have here. Regulations and standards, getting that EPA standard dropped a lot sooner than it took to just be February of this year. Or pushing for acceptable pricing of those dry powder inhalers and making sure they don't get repatented and get priced out of reach for our patients so that we can start to actually scale up optimal care for our patients and again, reduce the footprint. And the co-benefits part is really important. Creating green spaces, reducing those urban heat islands, being able to create places that are safe for our patients to exist. So again, we're focusing on the prevention. To close, I just want to highlight that the issues that we face are not new problems. We are confronting an acceleration of existing problems, and therefore we have to confront fixing them in ways that we have not yet tackled. but I am an optimist, and I see only opportunity, but one that is led by all of us as clinicians, bringing science, research, education, and excellence in clinical care to our patients' lived experience, and making sure that our patients' lived experience is at the forefront of any conversations. Thank you.
Dr. Carey, thank you for being here with us and for working together for better patient care. Before we adjourn, I need just 90 seconds of your time. Next year, CHEST will be celebrating our 90th anniversary. And for a moment, I want you to sit back and see where we've been, where we are, and where we're going.
In 1935, Murray Kornfeld, a tuberculosis survivor, envisioned a society of professionals who would come together to teach and advance thoracic medicine. By 1937, the name American College of Chest Physicians is officially adopted for this society. In 1943, the FCCP designation was introduced to honor those demonstrating excellence in the field, reinforcing their commitment to advancing chest medicine. Seeing a growth in need for international collaboration, this meeting served to advance the exchange of ideas between clinicians worldwide. CHEST contributed to legislation that shaped public opinion on the harmful realities of tobacco use. Continuing its commitment to education, CHEST developed the first volume of Seek, a self-assessment tool designed to help clinicians stay current with the latest advancements. In the 1990s, CHEST helped in the ban of smoking on domestic flights and launched its first series of clinical research grants. And in 2014, CHEST opened the doors to a new global headquarters, which is the home of the Simulation and Training Center. As we reflect on all that we have accomplished, we take pride in celebrating these milestones. With a clear vision, we now turn our focus towards an even brighter future. 90 years later, CHEST remains at the forefront of research and education with 22,000 clinicians working together to improve patient care and outcomes. You are the past and the future of CHEST. See you in Chicago for CHEST 2025 as we celebrate 90 years.
Well, I hope that energized you. Now, without further delay, go enjoy this year's annual meeting. I'm looking forward to celebrating this meeting with you tonight at the welcome reception at 5 p.m. right back here in the ballroom. Enjoy the meeting.